fine for me.
Oh, really? How far would you have gone up?
Well, if you went all the way past the press box, right to where the waterfall is,
Oh, yeah.
you do it there, and that'd give us all the space.
Oh, yeah.
Come to find out, all of that dirt that's in there, filthy. It was all dirt that came out of the school. So I didn't have a place to put their excess dirt.
This is a situation I can't live on like that. We're trying to emergency rock base
To build up those pads. They never found it.
Yeah, let me check and see if
And then we got 16 feet on one and almost 20 feet on the other. That's how much dirt they had taken out to build the high school.
Yeah, I didn't realize in high school what's underneath the bottom floor.
Well,
Yeah.
it was.
Just the bottom floor, you took the little tunnel that goes behind it and stuff.
Oh, what, really?
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, so they were talking about it one day and then, huh,
I gotta
I'm gonna go
be-
explore that. So yeah, I went into the science room and you just walk in, there's like, that's where I would go. There's no there.
Oh,
If I
yeah.
was in that area, if I was down by that area, I'd go right in there.
Yeah.
Because you don't know it's there.
Hi, how are you? Al Williams, John Williams, Williams Brothers.
Just to think that they get down that far.
You keep reminding me of that, will you?
I feel like things would run a lot better if I changed my last name.
all adoption.
You don't want my tax situation. I don't think that's a good idea. Now that one, yeah. Okay.
Glad you made it. Sir.
Oh, good.
Here, go ahead.
This was reality. You guys can look at that.
Hey.
Oh, hell. Huh. There's those channels.
Aluminum dome then. What is that one? Blueprints of the best lap?
Okay, you guys ready to go?
I think so.
Okay. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to our regular session of the UNT County School District Number 1 meeting of Board of Trustees. If you can go ahead and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first item on our agenda is to adopt our agenda. Is there a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item is our consent agenda items. And tonight we have our minutes from our last board meeting. We have a payment of our bills and to approve the 2022 to 2023 certified contracts. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion to approve the agenda.
Okay,
Second.
second by Mr. Peterson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So we're on to our presentations, and it looks like we have our special education report. Welcome.
Let's see if I can figure this out. Let's see if this works.
Is that your initial start?
No. There we go. Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, thanks for this opportunity to present our strategic planning for next year, and then just a recap and a review of some of the things we've been doing this year. And it really looks like I can pack a house, so you guys are in for a treat. So just to go over some statistics, some numbers real quick. Over the course of this year thus far, as of March 30th, whether it's been through a referral or a formal evaluation or students transferring in and out, we have special education district-wide has worked with right around 530 students that way. Of those, right now we have about 427 active students with active IEPs for our students. That's roughly 16% of our total student population. And, you know, you can look, is that too high, is that too low? And we're always wanting to make sure that we're identifying students that have disabilities that impact their education. And so high or low, that's kind of in the eye of the beholder, but it's something that we need to always be looking at.
Just a question, you know, on the spectrum of the 400 plus students, I mean, when you talk about students with disabilities, you know, what's the low-level disability, you know, and the high-level disability?
Help me out there. What do you mean? Like most prevalent that way?
Most common,
So most
the most
common-
serious disability?
Well, so it's a hard question, John.
Yeah.
But it's a good question.
Yeah,
Probably the most common is our students with some sort of learning disability, whether that's in reading, writing, math, and that falls in within huge spectrums in that category. We have students with multiple disabilities.
math, reading.
Well, it could be a learning
Combination.
disability, could be a cognitive disorder, could be a speech and language, other health impairment, which kind of goes over your students that have ADHD concerns, all the way to students with traumatic brain injuries, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so there's 13 categories that we work with and that we're allowed to work within as we identify students with disabilities. And I think the heart of the answer to your question would be is impact on education, because that's really what we look at on a case-by-case student. A student can have a disability. I mean, probably to some extent, all of us have some sort of disability, but we have to look at how it impacts the student's education, and if it's significant enough that it's creating gaps or a barrier to the least restrictive environment, which is the general education classroom, that way. And then there's a whole continuum of those considerations. So there's more common disabilities, but there's also, I mean, a student with a reading disability is just as critical with a student that has multiple disabilities that is well below their peers in their overall development and stuff. So, and that's why it's individualized. One student at a time, one consideration at a time, and then the team meets on one student at a time to figure out how to best serve them.
Thank you.
Great question.
Thank you.
So we have an influx of student, our community partners, LUCDA, and we're looking at receiving maybe, it's never sure until the first day of school, right around 60 students from that organization that have current IEPs that we then transition into our elementaries, into kindergarten, and then to determine how to continue to serve those students and meet their needs at an elementary level. And then we have about 28 students expected to either graduate or receive a certificate of completion or of attendance in school as seniors. I won't read all of these, but these next two slides are really the heart of the most critical next to our students, individuals, and that's our staffing. We have 38 certified staff, 70 either part-time or full-time support staff, paraprofessionals, and then a plethora of amazing individuals that fall under related services. And that way, and that goes from your counselors or social workers to your nursing, adapted PE, and again, the list is up there. And I wish, and maybe one of these times I ought to put a picture up next to all of these, because that's the only way I do my best to keep it in line down my office is I've got a picture board so I can remember all of these folks to the best of my ability. But just phenomenal people, and that's our full-time employed. And then we go on to our contracts because there's not a need to have a full-time individual, and it's more economical and realistic to have a contractual agreement with some other providers. And the only incorrect, and I didn't even think about it until I was reviewing this, is our visual impairment services. One of our teachers, Morgan Heaps, at Clark Elementary, has extended his education, and he is now, in addition to his teaching requirements and responsibilities, providing our visual impairment services to our students that way. But I hope what this shows, and just the amazing amount of expertise and years of service that we wrap around our students through the best of our abilities to get to the heart of really where they're at and how to best help them, looking for that ultimate day when they graduate and move on to the rest of the world and life, that way to get them prepared. So every year we have various number of indicators that through special education we're monitored, and the state, we report, and then the state gives us our indicator report card. And there's things that we meet and there's things that we don't meet, and we're always in a growth mindset on how we accomplish next steps. Some met areas of those targets is our graduation rate, our participation of students with disabilities in the YTOP, suspension and expulsion rates, meaning is there a disproportionate number of students with IEPs getting suspended or going through expulsion versus their general education peers, and no, there is not that disproportionate circumstance. Least restrictive environment is a big one, is where are our students being educated, and again, IEP teams are charged within their building to make LRE decisions for the student. And for our older students, the student is a part of the IEP team. And so to have our, to understand the least restrictive environment, are they outside of the class, out of the general ed setting, less than 40% of the day? That number should be quite low, and it's just a little over 1% of our students that are outside of the general ed setting that much of the day. And we'll look at another number that says, are they inside the general ed setting more than 80% or more? And so those are some of the considerations for this. Are we placing students in the sweet spot of where they can get the most effective education that way? And so that was an indicator that we also met. I think a big one is our transition planning for students at and above 16. How are we projecting into the future post-graduation? How are we helping them become aware of the opportunities in the community, opportunities for post-secondary education, opportunities for training, interviewing skills, so on and so forth, to help launch them into a successful adult life beyond math, reading, and writing that way, in addition to math, reading, and writing. A couple of the scores that I'm really excited about on our post-secondary outcomes our youth that are competitively employed, a year after leaving high school, we were at 81%, and we call them all. We get phone calls out. We don't let the state offers a company to just do robocalls and do it, but we choose to call our own kids so that they actually pick up the phone and answer us. But 81% of our students were gainfully employed. And then in addition to that, they look at a number that gainfully employed and or in a post-secondary training college type situation, and that bumps us up to just under 91% of our students that have graduated are being productive members of society, and that's pretty exciting for us to look at. Parent involvement, for those parents that were willing to take our surveys, let's see, 89% of them were at the level of like, yes, we feel like we're a very productive member of the IEP, that we have a good say in how our students' IEP is being developed that way.
So you sent out a
Yeah, there's
survey.
a survey.
How many surveys are mailed out? And how many did you get back?
So we try not to mail them out. We try to invite them to do it right after the IEP meeting. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. They all have a copy. And I don't have the exact number, but I believe there was less than 100, but more than 50 responded to the survey.
Is parent participation is it a challenge? Like it can be.
That's a good question too. It's actually a federal requirement. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to some degree to have an IEP without parent involvement. And so if a parent chooses not to or doesn't avail themselves to the meeting, there are ways that we can progress forward with it to stay in compliance with the IEP process. But overall, I would say over 95% of our meetings have parents that are active members of the IEP. Now, whether or not they took the survey is the difficult challenge to continually get that.
Thank you.
And then why top proficiency? In some of the areas, and I'd love to have you down to my office at some point to look at all the numbers if you'd be interested in that. Some of our areas, our students met the state rate. Now, we still want that to increase grossly, right? As far as proficiency goes on standards that the YTOP assesses. But in some areas we did meet, in some areas we didn't meet some of those expectations. But that is the charge of us, of special education, is to help be a solution to closing those gaps and to help our students get to a proficient level. Some of the areas not met, evaluations in 60 days. For in determining eligibility, we have to have it done in 60 days. And we had a couple that were missed that we're still serving those students. We're at about 96% of our students, and that needs to be at 100%. It's a federal requirement, and we are, there's always good excuses, but there's always things that we need to do to hone that in. So that's an area that we need to continually work on. And then, like I was talking about, the number of youth enrolled in higher education. That was at just under 10%, a little under 10%. So they're working, they're about 10% of them are enrolled. How do we increase that? Because it's not just about college, it's about vocational, it's about certification trainings and those types of things. So how do we continue to better our students' opportunities to be more gainfully employed that way? We talk about here's the LRE inside the classroom, regular class 80% or more of the day. And that was, we were off by about 5 or 6% of what the state would have us. Again, this is an IEP decision. And I guess the room for growth is continually looking one at a time at our students on what the best setting is and how to provide supports as it's appropriate in a general ed setting versus somewhere outside of that general ed setting. We have our dropout rate that we missed by a bit as well. One of the things that I talk about every year that I do this, and it is the way it is, and it's nothing that we say, well, this is the problem, because there's other ways that we can continue to increase our students continuing in their school through graduation. But our students that are determined through the IEP to stay in special education or to stay in public ed beyond graduation through their 21st birthday are considered dropouts through the federal definition. And it's a silly thing, and right now that's about, last year that was 5 of our 21 students that way would be considered dropouts, even though they're still within our attendance. So that's something that hopefully someday will change, but it is what it is right now. And then YTOP proficiency to continue to work on as a collaborative group within general ed, special education. How do we continue to support our students in their acquisition of learning? YTOP is one measurement. It is only one measurement, but it's what the state uses as a baseline and a measurement tool. And we have a lot of ways we measure student growth, and the YTOP is one of them, but we hone in on that. Some of the accomplishments of this year: continued SST work. That's our student support teams. That's how we wrap around Tier 3 supports for our students in bridging those gaps while maintaining core instruction at the same time. Extensive work around literacy, how we take deep dives with student data. Again, not just YTOP, but the whole student, and how do we uphold their capacity to receive a better understanding of how to read and articulate themselves through their education process. We had a very successful summer elementary social emotional learning summer school offering to help boost some of those kiddos that need some of that extra social emotional learning to be successful in these upcoming years, and we'll continue with that this year. We've provided mental health support district-wide. It's up in our telehealth therapy is up and running in every building, and we're seeing kids, and we've worked through and will continue to work through some of those bumps and bruises, but we are added another element of support, and that is in addition to the IEP. That's not just a special education thing, but that's for students who need it and can be referred to that. All teams are utilizing the IEP process to ensure least restrictive environment, so students are placed where they need to be to receive that support. We are also getting better and better at team teaching. What is that special education and general education dynamic? When is that appropriate? How to support teachers in that? It's like inviting someone into your house and say, hey, come be a part of the family, from a general ed perspective and a special education perspective. It's a big deal, and it takes a lot of work and the right personalities and a lot of growth mindset, and we have some amazing results from it, and folks that that are helping us support us in how to move forward with that as appropriate. And then just our staff, amazing group of people. They support each other, they push each other, and they love kids, and they're moving mountains every day. And I just can't express enough about the quality of individuals, especially given the recruiting capacity of Wyoming right now is really tough, and we have got phenomenal folks in all buildings that way. Looking forward to next year, continuing to support understanding of that LRE continuum, least restrictive environment continuum. Be data-based in all of our decisions. Understand the data. How do you work with it? What is the story it's telling you? And are we sure we're getting the big picture? Timely completion of evaluation. Ongoing supported teaching. We've had a few of our buildings go through a consulting group out of South Dakota, Black Hills Special Ed Co-op. And what we're really doing with that is how are all of the adults in the classroom meshing together? General ed teachers, special ed certified, and then special education classified staff or our paraprofessionals. How are we all on the same page, moving forward in the same direction for the sake of our students? With this support, continue to focus on our increasing our graduation rate, supporting students that have all sorts of behavior needs that way. And then also continuing work with our district assistive technology team I was just in a meeting with that group today, and how we're continually looking at that assistive technology piece on how we're helping students access general education curriculum and learning. Continue to work on PLC collaboration with general education and special education. One of the big things that we will be implementing this upcoming year is a elementary district-wide behavior support classroom that will be located at Aspen Elementary. We're hiring and continuing to hire for that support that will be mostly IEP driven and then behavioral support driven for other students that may not be on an IEP. But how do we support them with some of those behaviors that they're working with to modify that behavior so that the general ed classroom is their least restrictive environment? So to add that support. Continue to base our IEP goals around the standards. How is a student's IEP a ladder to making sure they're at grade level learning to the best of their ability? And then continue to work on our transition IEPs to continue to put our students in the best case scenario to be that productive citizen after high school. And then ultimately to support families through the IEP process. It's a big deal for our younger students when either as a parent or as a member of the district you say, I have a suspicion or I have a concern that my student might have a disability. To that parent that has their student graduating that says, don't leave us, right? And so throughout that whole continuum on how to support them. We could spend a lot longer, and I know my colleagues like me to spend a lot longer.
That's not necessary, you've been funny.
And usually I don't listen to Mr. Rigby anyway, but any questions or anything you'd like me to elaborate on further?
So I have a question because you brought up the fact that they consider them as dropouts when we continue their services to 21.
Yeah.
When it comes down to the surveys on like gainful employment or post-secondary education or vocational training, does it count against you if you do have those individuals who can never live on their own? They may have to transition to an assisted living facility because of their disabilities are so severe. Does that count against you?
It could, but the cool thing about that is, and I've seen it both ways, there's not a student out there that can't be doing something gainfully in training or employment or assisted employment. There's just not. I mean, I think the biggest barrier is that after they graduate, it's harder to do it without the school involved. And that's not a slight on our parents. Our parents are phenomenal, and they are doing everything they can. And that's honestly another way for us to improve is how do we prepare that so that they can be as gainfully employed as possible or in some sort of training mode as possible. But it could. So to answer your question, it could, but we sure think that everybody can work and be productive that way. So great question.
Question I had, Matt. What are some of the reasons that would prevent a kid from being inside the regular classroom 80% of the time? If we're below that standard, is there some things we can massage there or get them more into the regular setting that we have?
Yeah, and so when you look at individual IEP decisions, some of the basic ones, you look at class sizes, and you look at the student. If the student's, just for, I guess, lack of a better example, anxiety is prohibitive to be in a large group setting, I mean, that could be an indicator or a reason why maybe that typical large group setting is not an appropriate setting to receive that core instruction or that IEP service that lends to that. There could be several other reasons that way. It could be students that are determined to not necessarily be on a graduation track, traditional graduation track, that environment isn't the least restrictive environment to achieve the goals that the team has determined appropriate for them.
What I take away from that, it looks like you're taking the decision for the best interest of the kid versus meeting the requirement, saying, checking that box. We'd rather say, this is more individualized setting, one-on-one or smaller setting
Yeah.
versus trying to check a box. I think that's a good thing.
It is a good thing, and I guess in addition to that, if we're so far above that, I think that's a big indicator. Is like, are you making individualized decision, or are you just saying, you're in special education, you should? And that's something as a district we've grown leaps and bounds. Is how do we have it all? How do we have solid core instruction with peers as appropriate, but also we can't not look at tier 3 needs on how to continue to get the grade level instruction, but also fill in gaps due to a disability that way. So we want it all. I want every aspect of it, but it can't be about the numbers, but the numbers have to help us guide good decisions. But it cannot be about, I got to meet a state quota, I got to meet a federal quota. We've got to do it one kid at a time, one by one, that way.
So I guess I got a question, and I don't understand some of it, but is there any coordination between special ed and Horizon? Or do we have kids that are down there in the smaller classroom sizes and things that, so that the IEPs and things in which you evaluate them on, sometimes they get placed within the Horizon in
Sure.
the secondary? Okay.
Sure, and it's really good working with Mr. Hamilton. One of the things that we've put in place is to, if a student is currently a member of our district or transferring in and they have an IEP, one thing Shad and I have worked out is that we need to have a pre-staffing of sorts to determine, does Horizon have what that student needs? And Horizon is well-staffed with special education services, but the high school is staffed a little bit differently, a little bit more robust that way. The middle schools are staffed a little differently if we have a middle school student. So those transition discussions take place to determine if Horizon High School is an appropriate setting for all of the services that a specific student needs. And then we make those decisions. And like I said, it's been great working with Shad and all of the different buildings through special education, the principals, to make those determinations that way, for sure.
Any other further questions?
Is any of your staff here?
I work with all these wonderful people, but they're home watching on Zoom, I guarantee. Facebook Live.
The only reason I ask is, one, excellent presentation. I appreciated it. I've learned something tonight, and kudos to you and your staff.
Thank you.
It's a challenge. I know it is. It's got to be, but I think it's probably more rewarding in many cases.
It's a good job.
So thank you.
Welcome.
That's the good work.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any other presentations on the agenda, so we're down to school reports. Who would like to come up and share? Mr. Lester.
Good evening, members of the board. It's great to see you. I just wanted to give you an update. We had our senior project presentations today, and pretty typical as far as the percentage of students that pass and some that don't. And so we're right on target of where we normally have been. And on a typical year, we have between 15 and 17 kids that don't pass them the first time. And some of them because they're gone and other things, and we're right in there with the same this year, so we're pretty excited. But I'd like to thank Mr. Thomas, Mr. Rigby was up there, and Mr. O'Neill came and saw some, so I appreciate their support for coming. But they actually went really well, rather enjoyed it. It's an amazing day. So I also want to thank the board for the work that's going on at EHS. It's a little chaotic with the water project and the field project and all of that, but I just can't thank you enough because we know that it's going to be amazing when we're done. And so we're willing to put up with some hard, some difficulties right now for the amazing benefit that's going to come. I appreciate our staff, especially our PE staff, they don't have locker rooms right now. So we're trying to work around some of those kind of things, different changing places for kids, and just really want to thank our staff for being so flexible, and our coaches that have, I think of Roy Barker and our, those that have given up track on our home track this year with a vision of seeing an amazing field. So thank you for that. Also wanted to, we've spent 2 days with Jan Haig, and I just wanted to congratulate our schools. We are moving through high reliability school certification level 2, which is a big deal. And several of us have got the green light, and several are just right there. So I feel really confident, and I just want to congratulate our administrative team. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Thomas Rigby and Mr. Ingles for their support at the district level. They're always so supportive of us. And so anyway, super exciting stuff going on. It's going to be a big deal. So we're grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you. He's going to show his face up here. He's going to show his face. He'll come before the board.
Making my way. So, Madam Chair, members of the board, wanted to say thank you for the many years of support with Teton Science Schools. We were disappointed the last 2 years that we weren't able to go. Big disappointment for our kids and our parents. I know the middle schools are trying to do something to get these kids to be able to go as 8th graders, and then I think discontinue it moving forward. That was discussed as a board, gosh, maybe a couple of years ago even. It actually happened, I believe, we're not going to do this middle school anymore, but they all have an opportunity as 5th graders, and then COVID hit, and those 5th graders were given an opportunity. So I mean, my pitch would be that it would be worthwhile to approve the middle schools whenever they decide to go, just to take those groups of kids who didn't get to go as 5th graders. This is an awesome experience. I'm here on behalf of 3 of the elementary schools, North and Clark and Una Meadows, to ask for permission that we attend this year as our 5th graders. First time we've been able to go again in a couple of years. We're all ready to go. I think we put in our request with transportation and things, and the board meeting just came up now, and we haven't asked for permission. We would love to be able to send our 5th graders up there in the spring. I think Clark goes the 1st or 2nd week in May, and North goes the last week of the school year, and Una Meadows the 2nd to last week. We overlap by a couple of days. I think each school is up there for 5 days. So I don't know if I'm supposed to wait for permission now or go back and sit down, but that's why I'm here, just to let you know we'd love to go to Teton Science School again.
Madam Chair, members of the board, just because this has been approved every year that we've been able to go, except for the last 2, we assume it didn't need approval. They've made plans, they're ready to go. I just assumed they'd go.
Yeah.
You can go.
Go.
I won't be the one to say no. I'd have to move. I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Anybody else have anything tonight?
Madam Chair, I know you're going to hear from me a lot tonight, but I just wanted to express appreciation to the high school. I went to 4 senior projects today, 4 very different students, 4 very different projects, but they all had the same outcome. Those students had a grasp of what they were going to do after high school. And not only a grasp, but a well laid out plan, and it was just impressive. What was probably more impressive than anything else is just their presentation skills. As a 17, 18, 19-year-old standing up before a committee where you know this potentially is your graduation, yay or nay, very impressive. And my hat's off to the high school and the work that all those advocates have done with those kids. It's something that's really special, and very proud of our kids and very proud of the high school staff. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you. Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on to our discussion items. Our first item for discussion is our food service policy updates.
Good evening, members of the board. As you may have recalled, a couple months ago, we had our state review. It went very, very well. The only issues that we had were a couple of small policy things that they wanted us to update. And one of them is our unpaid meal and bad debt policy. We had the unpaid meal part, so page 1 is basically the same. The numbers that are highlighted that I can see on here are the lower numbers, are the ones that we're going with, which is what was originally in the policy. And then the part that we added was the second page. So if a student leaves the district, we have a whole policy that we're going forward with on how we're going to get them their money back or how we're going to collect that unpaid meal balance. Ultimately, the schools will be responsible if a student leaves an elementary school and moves to a middle, or a middle and moves to a high. But if that gets paid later on, that money will go back to that school. So the debt will still be there for the parents. It'll just be taken off on the food service side and put onto the student side. So those are really the changes that we've added here. Are there any questions about this policy?
You answered the only question I had, which was the higher amount, and so if you're going with the lower amount, I think that's more appropriate.
Yeah, I think that's what we need to do. Do you want to vote on this one and then do that one?
Yeah, this discussion of what we're coming in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's just talk, I'll show you the communication, and we can show you how.
Okay. So on the communication policy, this again is a policy that was already in place. The piece that they felt was missing was, what are we going to do if a parent comes in and speaks, for instance, Mandarin, and we don't have anybody who can translate Mandarin? So we needed to have a policy in place. What we're using is a company out of Salt Lake. They're a company that you can call last minute and say, okay, we need to have a translator. They have translators available. We would give them a credit card. They would take care of that translation for us. So it's on an as-needed basis. In all likelihood, this is something we probably will never use, but it's something that they insisted we add to our policy.
It actually fits well in our communication plan. I thought it was a good add, because we do care about students with limited English proficiency, so this is a good add.
Yeah, because this is district-wide
Yes.
for the communication plan.
And it's not just students, so it would be for parents coming in. So we would use it for anybody who has need.
I like that. Is there associated cost with that?
It's on a as-needed basis, so yes, there would be a cost if we contact them, depending on what we needed, whether we needed written translation or verbal translation. They would just give us a quote on what the cost would be.
Okay, it's probably very reasonable.
Yeah, and most of our translation services are in Spanish, and we still put that in-house.
Yeah. It was interesting you said Mandarin, because there was a family that moved in a few years ago that was Mandarin, so anyway.
It's actually one of the fastest growing languages in the United States.
Wow, okay.
Right, pop that one in.
So I do have a question for you. Upon graduation, checkout remaining funds can be transferred to siblings. So if there's remaining funds, but what about debt? Can that debt be carried over, or is that kid does not be allowed to graduate if there is a debt that needs to be settled?
We can't stop a child from graduating.
Okay.
But if a family or if a student had a sibling that was still in district, I would transfer that negative account to that sibling. First of all, if they had money, we would rob them
From the other one, okay.
We're actually really pretty good that senior year about collecting debt.
Okay.
Until that senior year and the graduation, we have no leverage, but we do have some at that time. And typically, these are paid. What really kind of bites us is when someone moves with a large debt.
And our concern is, because we're going back to free, reduced, and paid, after 2 years of free meals,
There's going to be
we don't know what that's going to look like. But I anticipate that we're going to see some high balances until families kind of catch up with the new system.
So I noticed in there, is there a way to notify, people that are coming in for the free and reduced? Because so many people are used to it. Is there a way that we can notify people within the community about the free and reduced lunches?
I have a plan in place, so we cannot accept applications until July 1st.
Okay.
So on July 1st, we're going to do a mass mailing out to every single family in the district with a hard copy of an application along with information on how they can go online and fill out an application, so they'll have a couple different options. I have the support of everybody back here as we have parent meetings or beginning of the school events will be in place to be able to help collect those. It's going to be more important than ever that we really get these applications in people's hands and get them to fill it out.
I know in all the back-to-school paperwork that I've ever gotten, it's
Well,
always
it's
been right
included in
there.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is included with the packet that they do online now. So that'll be right in there as a part to do.
I guess, the past couple of years, it wasn't something they really had to worry about, so that's why I was wondering if there needed to be an emphasis on that for people going forward,
It's
so.
going to be a huge emphasis.
Yeah,
Reminder.
so, as a reminder, so,
We even talked about some potential incentives to incentivize it for people.
Okay.
We've agreed.
So
Okay.
those are the two policies, so any questions, any more further questions?
I just noticed that it said cash or check as far as payment. Is there another alternative to
We
pay?
have an online payment system that they can use a credit card with. There is a fee involved in that, so most families will opt for that, but if they want to bring money in, then they have to do cash or check.
So you'll accept cash or check?
Yes. If I can figure out a way to accept credit cards, then I'll figure it out.
well, I have a Venmo account, if you would like to Venmo, then I transfer it back
Actually,
over
it's
to you.
not a bad idea.
Yeah, so-
Okay, any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
just have one other little thing I just wanted to let you
Okay.
know. Our meal pricing for this coming school year will be $3.20 for elementaries, $3.50 for middle schools, and $3.90 for high school for breakfast or for lunch. And then breakfast will be $2 for elementary, and middle and high will be $2.25. What I would like to ask the board is, I would like to forego the 40-cent or 30-cent reduced price that families have to pay if they qualify for reduced. They have to pay 30 cents for breakfast, 40 cents for lunch, which doesn't seem like much, but if you have a family of 5, that adds up quickly. The reason I'd like to do away with it is, in the long run, I think we actually come out ahead. So the reimbursement on that, on my end, that I get from the federal government is $300, I wish, $3.26 for every lunch. So for one extra student eating lunch that wouldn't normally because their parents say they can't afford it, that covers 8 other students with the 40 cents.
Okay.
Do you understand my
Yeah,
math?
yeah.
What I'm saying?
So I'm going to ask one more question on the inflation side of things and prices of what our meat's going to and different things. Is there any program out there or grants that's going to offset some of the costs that we're going to occur through feeding our students? Is there anything out there?
As of this moment, no.
Okay,
I mean, we've got the federal reimbursement. We don't know what that federal reimbursement is going to be. There's talk that it might go up a little. We'll see. There's a lot of talk out there. I'm not hearing anything that would indicate that we're going to still have free meals next year. I am hearing some talk that they might do away with some of or at least lessen some of the regulations that we have, which will help with our costs if they would do that.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
okay, all right,
It's a day by day.
thank you.
So in the action part, we'll be asking for 3 things.
Okay.
First reading on EF1, first reading on the communication plan, and approval that reduced pricing will be free.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, down to our EHS track and field update.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. O'Neill, why don't you come on down? We'll ask some questions. So, Mr. Dennis is away on school business, and so couldn't be here. He'd be the perfect one to go over this. To start off, I'd just like to echo Principal Lester. Hats off to the high school staff. They're on a mess right now, and they are being very patient. Very similar to what we experienced when Evanston Middle School was renovated. Again, we have great staff, and our kids understand and are willing to kind of take a step back and be patient and wait for some good things coming. Just a quick update on the track. This is a picture of the facility. If you haven't been up there, this light area here used to be the berm, and you can see the cut. So at this point right here, the berm is now level with the track. And then at this point, it slowly goes up to right before the restrooms, and that will be a sidewalk, no steps, so we're really pretty excited about this. What it follows, and you can't see it, it follows the fence line perfectly, and it's just a nice, gentle slope. You can see that if you've seen the size of those scrapers, that thing's huge. The amount of land that we get back is significant. Also, you can see the two earth movers over here. This berm is removed back to this telephone pole and has added a great deal of space in this area, flat space for our students and I guess future construction if we see a need. And that's just the work that Searle Brothers has done that I just pointed out. And again, I don't think we can say enough. We appreciate Stoney Searle, his family, Searle Brothers, Dirt Movers, for what they've donated. Daryl Staley, Dog, for the work that he's put in. Very impressive. And again, we just need to keep telling them thanks. And that was donated. We had roughly $10,000 worth of fuel donated by Cardwell, which is Hutchinson Oil. It used to be Hutchinson Oil. Gordon Moore. Again, we have great people in our community. And this could not have happened without that kind of dedication. If you take a trip on the other end, this direction, way out there where our lot is, you get kind of a scope of the amount of dirt that was moved. We have created a ski hill over there, basically. We will do some additional work to kind of make it look nicer, but a great deal of dirt out in that area. It's too bad we couldn't spread it over the whole 8 acres out there. You wouldn't even have seen it, but we could not travel across those high-pressure gas lines with those large pieces of equipment. So, very impressive. The other thing that's impressive is if you just look at what Field Turf has done, roughly in a week and a half. They've taken all the turf off. They began to level that field. You can't really see it. Maybe you can. This area here, you see a different color brown. That's actually a subsurface on top of the asphalt in preparation for the concrete. Why they haven't done it here is because there's about 2 feet of dirt that was put on this part of the track, the asphalt part of the track, so that they could drive on it. So the earth equipment could drive on it. And they used that to take out all the turf and the topsoil from the field. The other areas you can see, these light brown areas here, this is in preparation for the expansion of the stadium seats. You can see that will give us probably another 50 yards maybe of bleachers. We'll talk a little about that in the future in a minute, but and then of course you can see where the press box is. What am I missing, Mr. Romeo?
Well, the pits are right there where the scraper is.
Show you.
There we go.
This is a representation of this flat area here that we've created. You can see that this will be long jump, triple jump runways. There's 2 of them there, and a pole vault area. And this will all be, they showed us 2 different runways. This is going to be one big piece of runway now. They're going to do it out of one large piece of concrete. You can see the cutouts for the 100-yard dash. Again, we're running this way with the finish line down here. And then also we'll be able to run this way, a 100-yard dash. We can go both directions. So the work is really moving forward. If you haven't been out there, you need to be out there. As soon as they start laying that concrete, I think you'll get the scope of what that will do. It'll be elevated, and there'll be a way to come off that elevation down here along the shed and where the ambulance enters the field now. Again, it kind of surprised me. much work that they've done in a short amount of
Short
time.
amount
So
of time.
hopefully, if the weather cooperates, we'll be able to continue. So a little bit about costs. We've had some discussion about the $3 million that you guys allowed me to spend. We've had a couple board members say, well, you need to finish the bleachers, you need to finish the press box. That was not in the original scope of the $3 million. If you ask me, I think we can do it under $3 million, but it may be close. We are working on getting bids on the bleachers. It won't matter, we couldn't do that this year anyway. We don't care how much we pay for them, they're not going to be available this year. So that would be a project that will finish probably next spring, putting these bleachers here. We will begin work on the press box, about $100,000. So with that, one of the things we're asking is we may go over $3 million. 3.2 million, I think we can do those things. This year, we won't go over the $3 million because we won't be purchasing the bleachers till next year. So I think we're going to be okay. We saved roughly $75,000 in the slope on this side where we don't have to put stairs. But we spent $75,000 on some additional drains. So it's a push, but still, I think things are moving well. Did I miss any of that?
Yeah, we saved about, I say about $15,000 in fuel between Searle Brothers and Gordon Moore.
Yeah.
Donating fuel. So there's been some savings along, the idea that Mr. Thomas had of taking those stairs out, that was a big savings there.
We still plan on having a little bit of contingency.
We still have
within that?
roughly 10%, so
$300,000.
And we've added a few things, but I still think we're pretty good. Who knows? Our luck, we've never had contractors like these, first of all, so I'm hoping we'll come in on time, under budget. This will be good. They are good to work with. They've been great to work with. If there are savings, I believe they'll share those savings with us.
Yes.
And if there's more expense, guess what? They'll talk to us too. But I think we're in a good place. Again, it's just moving along. I don't know if you have to approve any additional expenditures. Just know that if we want bleachers and a press box, it may cost us a little more. I'll keep you informed as we get to that point. And if we do go over $3 million, I'll definitely get permission to do that.
Yes, please.
Okay. The other question that I needed to talk about, that was brought up again by several board members, were these domes. Jaron somehow found out about these 3 domes that were being sold by BYU. They used them during COVID as some medical facilities. You can see originally they were $263,000 each. Right now they tried to sell them for $125,000. I told Jaron, just offer them $75,000, see what they'll say. Well, they took it. So we haven't actually finalized it yet. They went down, Bubba and Jaron went down, I guess last week. They're willing to sell all 3 of those to us for $200,000. I think the good news of that is because of how the structures will be used for us, we're extending physical education facilities, track facilities, soccer facilities. We can use some of the ESSER funding for social emotional welfare and pay for them out of that grant. That's just the dome. We have received a bid on how much the concrete is for those 3 domes, roughly $325,000. So about, I think to put 1 dome up, we're talking probably an additional $150,000 for each one. I don't think my opinion, Bubba may disagree, I don't think we need 3. I think if we purchase all 3, let's try to sell 1, get some of those funds back. Because once they go up, I think people are going to want them. So let me show you a little bit more about these.
Well, if they're willing to accept $75,000, they must not have many people biting on wanting them. So then my thought would be is what would be the prognosis of us being able to buy all 3 and sell 1?
Yeah.
We might be holding a pallet of stuff on it.
I talked with Holly at the Boys and Girls Club, and she said if she could help, she would do that, because it is of interest to our community. This is just the lack of space, the amount of space this would create for indoor track, obviously, soccer, you guys see, outdoor
Look at
track.
the windows,
Yeah.
see why we need such a facility.
Yeah, they're not going to get to practice all week this week, and that's rough. But our indoor track team doesn't practice in a facility all year long. This would create an opportunity for that. I don't know that someone else would want to purchase them. I would sure ask. You know, Mountain View and Lyman, we're not the only school district on this side of the state that struggles with indoor facilities. You know, the eastern side of the state, they built them. Laramie, Cheyenne, Casper, Gillette, they've built these, and actually Jackson's building one as well, but they built these facilities, hard structures, brick and mortar structures. These obviously aren't those types of structures, but I'm with Mr. Thomas. I don't know that I'm sold on the three either. Doing a little research, I talked with Mr. Peterson. He brought up a couple of points with me. I did do some research through Sati. If you look at that, if you get on their website, look at what they have. They're impressive. I mean, they're not a hard structure. It comes with the structure itself plus HVAC and a generator and lighting.
That's heating and cooling.
We talked to the rec center at all, see if, if you can't, if it doesn't have to be put over a solid foundation, which you can stake down, I think that's how those structures work. Putting something like that over the skate park that they have.
I think these do require.
Yes.
All underneath foundation?
They have to have a foundation.
These are, I guess, a temporary permanent kind of facility. Especially with heating and cooling, you want a hard surface underneath them. And just, if I can keep going, this shows one of there's 3 domes, 2 different structure types. This is the one that you can actually see 4 volleyball courts side by side by side. And the space in terms of this has 2 basketball courts. Again, our thought is to have some kind of indoor astroturf that we roll out for soccer and track. And I can show you this. These are the diagrams, and this is from them, what they were using them for. You can see that right here, the blue area, they use that for like a classroom. They were actually using it for Sunday assembly, but we could have heating and cooling for classroom space too. So that's why I believe we can use those ARBESSER funds, because we can say that it extends our classrooms. This one shows you, this one's a little longer and narrower. It shows the basketball courts there. That's the one that had the 4 volleyball courts. The layouts, again, they're very versatile. But the question is, Mr. Du Bois, great question. They'll last 10 to 15 years. So our function is if we can get 10 years out of it and use it for indoor soccer, indoor track, and any of the other things that we use it for, I think it'd be a great purchase.
Would those funds cover the cement?
No, I think we would
Where would you get the,
out of carryover.
okay. But is there some sort of warranty that BYA, or is it as is?
There as is.
As is.
So, but we really don't know what the condition of them are, because they're all palletized or something like that right now, right?
Absolutely. We went down to speak with the gentleman that owns them, because BYU no longer owns them. It's a contractor that owns them. He was asked to take them down, and I believe he purchased them to himself, and I'm sure he basically got them for nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know details, but he was willing to come up and put them up for us if we did purchase them. And I would think if they're in poor condition, he probably wouldn't be willing to do that, but he was willing to do that for fishing trips.
How do they, what about the freight, get them up here? Does it take one truck on a
It'd take 2
flatbed?
trucks. And what we discussed, and understand I'm just along for the ride on this trip, he said, let me make one trip when you're ready to to put them up because they are heavy. Like I said, there's an HVAC system and a large generator that are extremely heavy and really you don't want to move them from place to place. It wants to make one trip. So yes, there would be some freight.
You can see the HVAC system and the electrical components here.
The thing that he talked about that sold me is we were talking about just for storage space. He said, you look at this as less than $6 per square foot. And we're charging $250 per square foot to build structures. I mean, you look at it, obviously it's going to be far more than less than $6 a square foot. It's probably going to be $15 to $20 a square foot when it's all said and done. And is it perfect? It's definitely not perfect. The $22 million field house was perfect. This is not that. But when he put it into terms of it's less than $6 per square foot, pretty good idea. I really do like the idea of offering an opportunity to purchase that through the rec center to put over the skate park and have that, because that is a concrete pad. So there are some things that can be used for, not just in our school district, but in our community. The opportunities are great. Again, they're not perfect. As we looked at those today a little closer, they're not the structure that I assumed that they were. There's a lot less hard structure, and a lot more of it is the fabric itself and cables. I guess it's fabric and cables. But I walked into a facility this weekend that was 50 by 100. And it was basically one of these, it had hard sides, but it was one of these. The amount of space that was created by a 50 by 100, I think these are close to 100 by 150. For 100 indoor, we have 100 indoor track kids. Where do you put them in our school? These would be great to put them there. And if they last 10 years,
Yeah.
great. And I think they're going to last longer than that.
You might have some growth in the track program.
And we will. And our soccer kids, what we're doing, not we, what Mother Nature's doing to them right now is really quite unfair. We expect them to participate and compete against 4A schools around the state. And one great thing is we're building this facility that's going to allow us to get outside a little more often. But even the past couple of days, even with that turf field, they wouldn't be able to be outside. This would give us an opportunity to be inside, and the kids can continue to perform. So
Father, how durable is that fabric? Just curious. And if it tears or something, do they use a way to repair it?
It looks like there is. I don't know that much about it, but I did look at some of the extras that you can get. You can get some, it looks like giant Band-Aids to me.
Okay.
So I'm sure that's the case. Mr. Peterson asked me about would it hold up under load? And through research today, we found out 100 pounds per square inch.
Not per square foot,
Yeah,
per square inch. Yeah, so I was like going,
Well, you got
I had to ask him, I was like, are you sure it was square inch? Because that was crazy for me, so anyway.
100 pounds per square inch is what it says, if you look at their website. So they seem to be extremely durable, hold up under pressure.
And then the insulation on it was 8 mils, I think.
Yeah.
You can get it 4, 6, 8, and 12. And I think these are probably 8.
But you can add R factor to
R factor, yeah.
With energy costs, is it substantial to keep them floating and inflated for the
What
year?
I saw was a quote of 5,000 a year.
5,000 a year?
For all of them, or
Just
for
for one? Okay.
So, what I wanted to show you, if you go back to this picture, is as we've had this discussion, where we put at least one of them is in this area here.
Yeah.
So this is where the tennis courts used to be. I kind of wanted it in front of the school where the parking lot was, so we could use it as a parking lot after 10 years. And talking to the PE department, they think this would be better location for all of it. The practice field is above, other field will be below. This is a throwing area for the shot put. We would potentially move that over here. Or move it above. The second one potentially could go right here. That's an area on the practice field that is not part of the practice field. It's an extra grass area.
Grass area.
So you do have locations for it. The third one, someone said put it at Davis. I just don't think we need three. But, is this a potential risk? Yeah. It is. We were trying to, you guys know, you guys are the ones who really pushed it. We went to the community to do this right. $22 million, and that was really kind of on the low end of things. We're not going to get $22 million. If we could find this kind of space for roughly, if you figure the cost is $75,000 for the structure, $150,000 for the concrete, $225,000 with $75,000 of that paid for by grant, it may be a risk worth taking. We'll have three of them to find two that will work.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I would sincerely caution against using ESSER money to fund the third. If you're going to turn around and sell it, to take federal money,
Yep.
buy something and then turn around and sell it causes real.
Yeah, if we sold it, we wouldn't be able to do that.
That's an arbitrage situation, and that gets us.
It's not good.
so my question to this is, so there is two different size
Yes.
systems.
Yes.
Two are the same size and one's different. What if you purchase all three and you don't assemble the third one? And then you got 20 years worth of life out of these things rather than
That's fine. I mean, but if you turn around and, what I'm
have
saying
to
is.
store it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you
Turn around, sell it, yeah.
Selling it's a bad idea. It's
Yeah.
something like using Title I funds to buy a computer and selling it on the black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of saying, let's not go that direction.
It's called arbitrage, it's bad.
So I have one more thing. I actually talked with Field Turf, the man
That's bad too.
that sold us the track and field here. I happened to see him this weekend at the Utah AD's meeting, and I asked him if we could purchase used turf. So your question generated some thought, and he said that Utah State is pulling up their turf this summer, and I thought, what do you think about us getting a hold of that turf? We could lay that down in one of those blow-ups, excuse me, but one of those blow-ups, and he said it's possible. You'd have to hire someone to sew it back to the size that you want, cut it and sew it. But he believes you could pick up that used turf because then they don't have to dispose of it. So just some thoughts, the possibilities.
So my question or my thinking on this was, you do one of them in concrete and do the other one as you would your artificial turf. You put your drainage system and crushed base underneath it, and then you just roll out your turf, and your turf stays there full time. And then you don't have to worry about rolling up and taking space in the other dome. And then the one would be concrete that you could utilize that direction. So you'd have one that would be artificial turf and one that would be the concrete for your volleyball, basketball, or whatever you need to. The other great space for this is for your dance team, your cheerleaders, your marching band. These are big enough that they have the ability to go in there and practice. You know, we put some turf down there or whatever. It would be phenomenal for them, so.
I would say it's going to be used, there's no question, it will be used nonstop. Anything that we put out there for activities is going to be used. Am I going to be disappointed? Am I going to be disappointed if we don't get it? I'm not going to be disappointed. I look at the facility that we've got going in right now. I just want to say one thing. I talked to a gentleman yesterday morning, an older gentleman that was walking around. He had his walking stick, and he was talking to Dog about what was going on in our facility. And Dog was trying to explain to him what we had going. And he called me over there to talk, and he said, "What's going on?" I said, "We're putting this turf field in, new track system, and then we're flattening this out to create more space." And he says, "You know, that should have been done 20 years ago." He's probably right. It probably should have been done 20 years ago. it didn't. It's okay, it's being done now. And he says, so who is this going to benefit? And I thought about it for a minute, and I said, this is going to benefit 50,000 kids over the next 40 years. That's what you've created with that project. Without anything to do with this blow-up stuff, which I think it will benefit a large number of kids, no matter what you decide with the blow-ups and that. As I told John, because anytime you start talking money, John cringes a little bit. And he did a fantastic job for us coming up with the funds to be able to do this project. I am more than pleased with whatever you do. I just think that the more opportunities we create, the better it is for kids. This stadium is a huge opportunity for kids. Those blow-ups will be a huge opportunity for kids. I promise you, it will be money well spent.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
when do we have to let these people know?
I know Mr. Dennis told them that we were having a school board meeting and you guys were going to discuss it, and we'd let him know after that. I don't think he was in a huge hurry. He's got bigger fish to fry. You've been to Utah, a lot of construction going on down there. They're housing these at the, I think it's a BYU dairy farm. Is that, yeah. That's where they're housing these, and they're okay there right now. They said we could leave them there until we're ready to get them, to come get them or have them delivered. So I don't think he's in a huge rush.
What's the chance that somebody else makes a better offer?
I think that's eventually going to happen. See, I disagree with everybody on that fact. Everyone's looking for space.
For
If
space.
you've been down to Provo lately, there's a giant blow-up that's down there right now. There's an athletic facility. Yeah, it's giant. I just think that Utah Valley took one of them and they put one up at their facility. I saw two of them down at a golf course in St. George. They're using them one for storage and one for office space. Well, it's pretty interesting this is a cheap way to gain indoor space. And I think when people find out about it, they're going to be interested.
So with two of them, we'd end up with approximately 23,000 square feet.
Yeah, that's quite a deal.
My opinion goes back to that older gentleman with the walking stick. We should have done this 20 years ago. So I probably agree with him, even though I haven't been here for 14 or 15 years myself. Personally, I'm of the opinion to get all three of them, put two of them in cement, and put one with the turf if we can get it from Utah State, and see if they'll donate it to us. But anyway, I'm telling you, I think, in my personal opinion, 5 years from now, I wish we'd have got that third one. But that's my opinion. So if that's the decision, either way, I'm good with it. But
I diddle that.
That's my feeling, is get all three of them.
Yep.
You can always use that third one to, fix the other two if there's something wrong with
The
it.
third one can go over the tennis courts. There's already concrete there.
Right.
Put them down there by the...
That's my opinion. I think this is huge.
Yeah.
I think this is huge, and it might even be more huger, if that's a word, than that right there. I'm not saying that's not excellent. I think that's excellent, but I think that indoor stuff here in Evanston, Wyoming, I think that'll be huge. That's my opinion.
Do you guys have any?
And I know Mr. Williams will figure out a way to pay for it all.
It's just,
No pressure.
he's over there.
Well, and Ryan, my understanding is that the concrete, everything else that would be done to these would be put off until 2022 and 2023.
It's just purchasing these right now.
Just
All we're doing is purchasing.
purchasing them right now.
Yeah. And the rest can be planned out.
What do we need to do?
Well, it's an action item later.
Yeah.
So
Down here.
someone will have to make a motion. Do we purchase one? Do we purchase two? Do we purchase all three? The quote that was given, but it sounds like when they talked to him, the quote is $75,000 each, which would be $225, but I think they said $200.
200.
So all three.
Yeah, and we talked about last board meeting, all three of them at 125 apiece, and we were, at the time, we were siding with, let's just get all three. So now we've got a deal, if you will.
They said, yep, to $75,000.
Right.
Should have said 50.
There's always no unless you ask.
Well, you could always ask for the other one, for the third one for 50.
That's what it would be. if
It would
we
be,
did
yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
75, 75, and
And
50.
the idea that they'll store them until next spring, that's pretty palatable.
Yep.
I think we can work on them for price as well. We only talked with them for about 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But I think if we were willing to take all three, I think we can get them down even more. At least we can try.
Yeah, you try.
I'm good at working on
To
stuff.
the point not to kill the deal,
Well, we
but
can
Yeah,
talk
and you
about,
know,
like,
the
if
board,
we're
man,
being
those guys
no
are so
more than
tough, man.
200,000.
Can you help me
Not
out
to
here?
exceed 200,000 for the
Something like
three,
that.
so.
I'll try that.
Yeah, I,
So,
later on.
oh, okay, 10-4.
just tell them the board only approved for 175. So,
I can throw anything
yeah, I know you can throw anything out there, so.
Tell them whatever you want.
Well, you can do a couple of fishing trips, right?
I can do whatever.
Okay.
If it took 10 fishing trips, as long as I get to go.
I just have one last question, is what kind of security, once those one or two or three or whatever, they're up, what kind of security, do we have?
If you look at these-
Cameras?
Yeah, if you look at these
Yeah, 'cause-
structures, you can see that each one comes with a garage-type door.
Yeah.
Overhead door.
And then
Man
you
doors.
have a regular door, and then a pivoting, almost like a circle, what do they call those?
Turnstile?
Turnstile kind of
Yeah.
door.
Well,
You can see these,
Yeah.
and they definitely look secure.
No, I'm not talking about secure of the door, I'm talking about the whole thing.
Vandalism.
Vandalism,
We can definitely put cameras in.
I'm, yeah.
That'd be easy. Ish.
Anyway,
Hey,
That was one of
anything,
the questions I had, is can we secure them from
Yeah.
people coming inside?
Well, if they're up.
do we need to talk about anything else regarding the track and field update?
There's one thing I wanted to mention, and I can't say enough about Stoney Searle and his family. And I don't think people realize what he has done for this community, Con, when they were here. The softball fields down there, they did all the work for that down there, and then the Wyoming Downs and different things. But this in itself, what they've probably done is a $200,000 to $250,000 dirt job for us that they just donated. And you can't emphasize enough, what they've contributed to our town and our community and our school district, so.
If we plan something, when it's up and running, and we have a ceremony cutting, something nice display or something.
We said we were gonna call it Dog Falls over there, because Darren Staley did the work on that little
well, is there gonna be
drainage,
names
so-
for the stadium when it's all done?
The stadium's already named.
It's already named, yeah.
But we have several locations where we can put plaques, and one of the things about this stadium, you could put a plaque up for Cyril Brothers,
Well,
Absolutely.
what's the name of the,
K-Pac Stadium.
okay, why not name it Searle Field? Something like that. Just an idea.
That'd be up to you guys.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I like the name now.
Yeah, so.
No.
No, we.
Well, it's like any other stadiums, they have the name of the stadium and then they have a field,
No, I mean,
Something like
that's
that.
fine, and they're not looking for that. I
I
don't think that's
imagine
not
not.
what they're after.
Yeah.
Stoney is a great guy, and that's not what they're looking for. But to put a plaque up there and do something like that would be huge. Recognition, I was just talking to Dan about maybe even the Hall of Fame for the family type thing, so, which would be big, so.
Yep.
Well,
I just would have one comment, is that this started out late October, early November, with just an idea. Mr. O'Neill got the turf people here, and I have to thank John Williams that just said, okay, this is good, and you start to run with this, and then you see what's done in really not a lot of time. Just great people that did a lot of work, and my hat's off to you. Yep.
from conception to completion,
Yep.
less than a year.
Yep.
That's impressive.
Definitely.
Yeah, don't sell yourself short, because this is being talked about for 30 years. And it happened on your watch.
Yep.
That's, Mr. Williams was huge in this, and Jared was huge, Mr. Thomas obviously fantastic, but that's really you guys, and less than a year, that's pretty incredible that it's happening, and most importantly, it's happening for kids.
Yep.
Yes.
That's the most important thing.
I'm excited for the outcomes we're going to see.
Yep.
Definitely. Okay, anything else on this topic?
Nope.
Okay, let's
Yes.
move on, down to our athletic trainer RFP.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we've talked about this for quite a long time. I know everyone's aware that we were approached by Star Valley Medical Group. They would like to provide us an athletic trainer for the district, which would be housed at the high school. As we began this process, we made it pretty clear that this has to be open to all, anyone. So what we've put together is an invitation to bid for an athletic trainer for the district, not at the high school. You can see really what we're looking for on these bullet points. This is a little different bid than I've ever been involved in because it's an open bid. We'll open it at a certain time. After a certain date, we'll take any bid, best bid. The reason why we have to do that is because personnel's involved. That's why we couldn't get this going last year, is because they couldn't find someone to hire someone. They really need to be doing the hiring process now, which they are. So anyone that's local, competitive, that wants to be a part of this, they have to have the same kind of time to find somebody to do this. If they, again, their bid is up to them. If they want to charge us for it, they can do that. We know from Star Valley Medical Group, they are paying all the costs except for the supplies and the training room, which is an unbelievable deal. But the attempt of this bid is to open it up to anyone else that's in our community that wants to be involved in this, that would provide a similar service. Didn't really want to go through all the bullet points, but it's everything that we've talked about. The very first one I think is important. It includes hours during the school day for rehabilitation of our student athletes, consultation, and instruction. I think this is a great opportunity to get a student health type class, vocational. Also, I think it's important that we have in there that this will provide training to our coaches, ongoing training annually in terms of concussion protocols and care and prevention of athletic injuries. In-house individual to do that would be great. The daily participation of this individual, it's a big commitment. I think it'll be challenging to find someone that will do this for what they're willing to pay. But it's something they want to do, something we want to do, so let's open it up and
See what happens.
competition and see what happens. So how the dates work, you can see that the contract will be awarded anytime after June 1st and before August 3rd. So it's an open time period. We need to know by August 3rd if we're going to have an additional staff member in our building. Bids will be accepted anytime after May 15th, but before August 1st. So a company that couldn't necessarily get their bid in by June 1st can get it in before August 3rd, and we will consider those at that time. It'll be necessary, as it's in here, the board has the right to accept any bid after June 1st. Like I said, I've never really done one like this before, but it's pretty straightforward. Anything after the bullet points are typically the legal requirements, legalese that have been with our other big contracts. I did have Mr. Phillips go through this. He doesn't see any problems with it. The biggest challenge will be for whatever agency wants to provide this service is to find someone that will do it. Move to Evanston with this salary and perform these services. Great opportunity for kids if we can find someone to do it.
Is there room for the salary? Is there room for an increase if, you just can't find someone that meets the qualifications and everything that's required and, I'll do it, but I need more money as a salary?
We met
Is there room?
the Star Valley Medical Group, and we asked
Yeah.
lot of questions, and that was one of them. Is this something where you can say, we'll pay this much, will the district kick in $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for this kind of service? That's why it's an open bid. If they want to say, we'll pay the individual $60,000, they'll cover 40 of it, district covers 20 of it, that's up to them.
Oh, okay.
That's what I think is the surprising thing with the Star Valley Medical Group. They're paying for all of the salary. So it's their salary structure, not ours. So
Yeah.
we're kind of locked into our certified salary structure. We started a certain amount for everyone.
Yeah.
They don't have to. They can follow their own salary structure, which gives them more flexibility and freedom.
So would the Star Valley Group bid on this?
They would have to bid on it.
They would have to bid on this? Okay, all right.
And in reality, what they've done is they've bid orally, they just haven't put it on paper.
Yeah,
So I've seen their, what do we call it, posting for this job. It's already posted.
yeah,
And it's posted with basically all those bullet points we want.
right.
And that's the expectation if they hire. So we talked to them when they were here
Right.
and explained that they'll have to bid. They haven't seen this document. No one has, of course.
Because it hasn't been published.
But we'll get it out. Again, by the 15th of May is when we start receiving those bids. Star Valley Medical Group, just like what happened last year, they won't bid if they can't find an employee to do it.
No.
Just do that. So this may not be able to function again. If it doesn't, my recommendation is we go back and we try to find another physical therapist in our community willing to provide a similar service. They wouldn't be able to provide the daily, similar service to what we've provided in the past. So we can always go back to that.
Which is not what we want to do.
No.
Right.
To have a trainer in our high school is what we want. And not pay for it is really.
Is really what we
Would the
want.
trainer,
Yeah.
direct line supervisor be the company they're working for?
Yes.
Would there be a dotted line to the district somewhere?
Yes, we would be involved in hiring and selection of individual. We did make it pretty clear.
Okay.
They may be your employee, but they're working in our building with our kids. We need to be involved in that selection. So we would have oversight of it'd be kind of like how we operate some of our special service staff, where their direct supervisor may be Mr. Williams, but their principal in that building also has oversight in terms of their evaluation. So how they're doing with the kids. It would be a partnership.
Okay, great. Good
And I
start.
don't have this on the agenda to approve. We can post it, we can get it going, you can approve it next month. It's a bid.
Yeah.
You don't really need to.
We don't need to do that
Until the bid comes
until
in.
the bid comes in. Yep,
Yeah.
Is that?
You're good.
yep.
Bids, the bids. I suspect people are, I mean, when you've got these dates on here, anytime after June 1st it can be awarded. I mean, if I'm bidding on this thing, I'm going to get my bid in real quick.
So we don't need to approve to go forward for posting this or going out to bid for this service?
You approved last month, I believe.
We did, that's right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
It was last month that we
That's
already
last
had done
month we
that, so,
already did.
anyway,
Yep.
okay.
Wonderful.
Okay,
Okay, sounds good. Okay, next item on our discussion is district logo trademark.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this has nothing to do with me. So.
Doesn't?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm so excited because I get to do something that's kind of fun. And I never get to do fun things. I don't work in that.
This is all fun.
Well, fun world.
I don't get to show up like the principals or Matt Williams and talk about how great things are. But this one's kind of fun. Trustee Wheeler approached me a while ago and asked me what I thought about trademarking our logo. And I had never thought about that at all. Never even crossed my mind about what that might mean. And so I've been doing some work on looking into that. And before I dive into what I have discovered when it comes to the possibility of trademarking what we have, Matt, John and Bubba, they did a little research for me. I didn't give them a lot of time to do this. They did it without me asking. The administration's always one step ahead. But they discovered in this file that we have that in 2008, we hired a company called iCold Design, which apparently is now defunct, I think, right, John? John looked, he couldn't find where these guys are. We paid $1,600 for them to develop a new logo for us. And if we go back far enough to when Dave was in high school, or Jenny or me, I know, it's way back. It's ancient times for us now, Dave.
Yeah.
But if we go back that far, we had the guy with the beard who was very angry, the devil. And instead, this company back in 2008, they gave us this E with the trident, which I think is an improvement. I mean, that's a really clever design. Some of these others that they had, I don't know how much you looked at this, Bubba, but some of these are crazy. I mean, they've got She-Devils. Yeah, I don't know if I can. They're kind of funny.
Yes, there's a train.
There's one with the train. Yeah, here's the one with the train right here. This one. I'm glad we didn't go with that.
Yeah. Skull up there.
There was this guy right here. Anyway, I'm getting way off track, but this is kind of funny. Here's the really fun one. I don't know why we didn't go with these two fellows. Anyway, they made a great choice. They had some awful options, but the one that was a home run was this one.
Yep.
And that's been the primary logo that we've had at the high school since 2008, as far as I know. I don't think the Angry Devil makes much of an appearance even as a secondary logo. It's just the Trident E. And we did pay for that back in 2008, but it was never trademarked. And if it's not trademarked, that means that we have no way to protect it. We have no way to exert any ownership over it. We have no way to really benefit monetarily from the use of that trademark. Even though we paid for it to be designed, we can't control its usage. You'll see that at Walmart. They use the trademark down there when they sell t-shirts every fall and sweatshirts. We don't benefit monetarily from that in any way that I know. And so the idea is that we trademark that logo with the hope that we can monetarily benefit from it down the road and protect it from being used by other entities.
Well, and one of the things that theoretically could happen is somebody could poach that trademark and then turn around and say to
So you got to pay
Yeah.
you got to pay for it,
either.
which we already paid to have it designed.
Yeah,
That would-
well, and to that would just be blackmail.
Yeah.
So right now, it's not
We have to
trade.
use what we already paid for.
Yeah,
So
but
right
that
now
was
it's not-
my biggest concern,
Yeah.
was somebody could come back and say, pal, you owe us this amount of money.
Surprise, I just trademarked this.
Yeah.
Now you get it.
Yeah.
So it's not trademarked right now?
No.
Oh, okay.
As far as I know, we didn't do anything along those lines. There's no evidence in this file that anything was done as far as trademarking or protecting it, other than we just paid to have it done.
Well, I think the return on the investment would probably only be a year or two,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah. That's the hope. But anyway, I am a jack of all trades. The one thing I cannot do is anything related to trademark. That is a very specific practice of the law. I reached out to a friend of mine who does this down in Salt Lake. The company's called Intellectual Strategies. He kind of cracks me up because if you saw on the attachment that I sent out, he's got the car wash options here, the basic plus or premium. Yeah, I would recommend that we go with the full wax and protection job and premium job because for what we're trying to do, I think it's important enough that we get it done correctly. There's one thing I really want to emphasize here, and that is, it's on page 3, it's down towards the bottom. It's one of the services that they offer is addressing the distinctiveness and likelihood of confusion. It's a consultation. They look at the trademark registry to see if there is something out there that's like what we have. I would be surprised, but you never know. Once you think you're really special, you find out you're not, and someone that maybe has already done this. The hope is that that is not the case, and that we are distinct enough and unique enough with that Trident E that we can trademark this, and that we can alone own it and protect it, and maybe even benefit monetarily from it. But that's what they offer. It's $3,000. It's a flat fee. There may be some additional fees for filing, but they're minimal. I think it was $350. So, of course, like anything, it costs some money. We're all talking about money, begging for money here, and this is another one of those. But I think it's pretty critical that we do something like this to not only protect the trademark, but as I mentioned, potentially maybe even benefit monetarily from it down the road.
Question is...
So those are the thoughts, questions.
Yeah, let's say it gets trademarked, and who in the district would be the department or individual that would, take in the requests from the Walmarts of the world that want to make a bunch of T-shirts, and they say, hey, we want to make a bunch of T-shirts, and then that person would say, all right, well, you can do that, but this is what what you're going to pay the school district. Who would...
John Williams.
You know what I mean? Who would be that?
So bored, John's file.
You know what I mean?
Obviously, I would need to be involved in that, but
most likely, in the way that if you notice that file that was in the athletic director's office, we have at times semi-monetized that type of thing with student activity funds, and the AD's office has kind of run that. Now, obviously, I just collect checks, put them in the right account, so we'll work together. But really, it's the AD would control the access.
How much is that total?
It's
$3,350.
I can give you some historical background, how this came about. Is Kay Facker, the athletic director, previous athletic director, was trying to do some research on where the Red Devil came from. And that's why you saw the train.
Yeah.
At one point it was Red Devils were the clinkers that came out from the steam engines.
Yeah.
What happened is we were approached as a district because we had used a logo that the Blue Devils used, Arizona Blue Devils.
It was Sparky.
Yeah, so we were told cease and desist or pay them.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the Sun Devils in Tempe?
Yeah. So that's kind of what started this, and Kay that's when we went to the firm and had this design, I believe. But it was because we were poaching someone else's. So anyway, that's kind of how it was.
We don't want to get into that problem again.
No.
So any idea of like the associated costs that we would charge, like our local
No.
like T-shirt shops or anything like that to do that?
No.
Like, is that going to be a
I'm
problem
guessing
to
the
them?
local guys would probably subsidize that one pretty heavily, but
Yeah.
And as John,
say, yeah, you can do it for free.
as John mentioned, where I think these funds should go are the booster clubs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And again, we're not doing it to make money. But if people are making money on our logo, there should be something.
Like Oklahoma State making money off of Cowboy Joe. That's just not right.
Does Wyoming still have a football team?
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Just asking. It's just a question.
Dan, you have a question?
Yeah, so I think there's a way, once you get this, that you notify the people involved.
Yeah.
So the local people you would notify, and we either waive the fee or it's $1 or whatever you want to do, and then the other people that you notify them. And,
Yep.
and there's a number, or there's some way you can look at somebody that's copyrighted and you can tell it's been copyrighted because there's a number on it.
Yeah.
So ours would have that on it so that we could.
Well, we'd have to
be able
put the
to do it.
TM at the bottom every
Yeah,
time we
yeah.
printed it
Yep.
for any purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
And we would have to require that that be included. So that would be one of the stipulations to using it would be, they would have to have a little TM down there. But, if the board is interested in moving forward with this, then I will try and have my friend who works for this firm appear for a discussion on this at the next board meeting. We can add it as an action item and enter into the contract and move forward.
Is there a way to, that intellectual strategies, of course, it depends on how good of a friend you are to these guys, would donate or even discount because it is for the school?
No, not gonna happen. No, we won't go there.
We'll let them go in one of those domes and play tennis.
Do we need to send Mr. O'Neill down with you?
I don't think Bubba's fishing trips will do it. I wish,
Yeah.
but no, I don't think that's very likely.
Lawyers.
So what do we, so what do we need to do?
So we just need,
approve the
if,
funding.
Put it on the agenda for next month.
For next month?
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it would be good to have him here to participate.
That'd be
That'd be
great.
good.
I didn't want to have him come if we weren't going to, if
Yeah.
we weren't
No,
interested.
I think everybody's interested in
Mhm.
moving forward, so.
Okay.
Good idea. Yep.
Is the
Okay.
process once?
Dan, he's the guy. That's a great
This is-
idea.
You're the man.
This is a fun idea.
I know, I get to do something nice for once.
Jeff, do you know what the start to finish process is?
How long?
Yeah.
That'll have to be a question for him. I don't think it takes very long.
I wouldn't think so, but,
But I don't know the answer.
okay.
Anything else?
No,
Okay.
we'll just see him
Thank you.
at another
Thank you.
meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Schmooze the guy with the
Okay, budget
dinner.
update.
Madam
Take
Chair,
more
members of the
minutes.
board, first part of the update, I'm going to keep this really, really quick. So
Okay.
we have been working on our compensation philosophy for our support staff. We brought an outside consultant and worked with us. And this is the draft that we have come up with. The philosophy, I think, is really basic, straightforward. You can see the bullets at the bottom. Our strategy is to be competitive in the labor market in each personnel category, recognize the levels of education, skill, effort, and responsibility required for each job, rewards continued service to the district, secures the talent necessary to achieve the district's mission, fiscally responsible, compliant with all federal, state, and local laws, transparent, and clearly communicated, periodically reviewed to ensure the system is being successful. Where we are now is we will meet again tomorrow and firms a couple things up. They'll begin working on job descriptions, and again, it seems to be a good process, and I think we'll be pleased with the results. But just wanted to update you on that compensation philosophy.
I like
Once
it.
it's all together, the board will approve it, of course, but we're right in the middle of the process.
Okay.
The other part, I wanted to just take a minute and, in terms of the overall budget process for next year, kind of let you know, we finally received from Wyoming Legislative Service Office, LSO, the summation of the legislation this year. And as I'm sure you're aware, in terms of K-12 school finance, they did approve external cost adjustments for educational materials and energy. The third one that's built into the model is for staffing. They took that out. So there is no cost of living adjustment in the model for our staff. So the final results, we do know tentatively that we're right about $40 million again. We're $100,000 more than we were last year. Which I guess is better being $100,000 more than $100,000 less. As John and I've been working on the budget, we'll continue to move forward. There's not really much we can do until we get the 100 from the State Department, which is the official amount of money that we'll receive in terms of our entitlement. John has created a draft budget. You can look at scenarios. We've already worked a step in there and where we are with that. We're roughly $400,000 over budget. $400,000 we can manage. When we've been 1.2 or $2.2 million over, it's a little tougher, but $400,000 we can work on that in the next 2 months. So that's a positive. We are looking at, like everyone else, probably an increase in our insurance. There is no cost of living adjustment for insurance either. It cost us more this year than last year. So those will probably have to be paid for by the staff or by a benefit change. So we'll begin that process. That typically happens at the end of April, beginning of May with our insurance renewal. The news is not great, but it's not bleak. The other part of that is because of the action taken with our ARP ESSER funds. Every staff member that is employed next year will receive $2,200 as that stabilization payment. So that's truly their increase for next year is through that ARP ESSER funds. We do know that what was approved in the legislature is the carryover, which we were hoping would, is capped at 15%. They did extend that cap to 30% until 2026. That means that any of these one-time purchases that we can use ARP ESSER funds, we'll use those one-time funds, pay that amount, and our carryover will hopefully build back up. Our goal is to have $6-7 million in carryover after we've spent $3 million on the football field. It may take a couple years to do that. We're fortunate to have that because sooner or later, when these funds are gone, we may have to dip into the carryover to balance the budget. And that's why we've asked for the carryover to be extended. So again, it's not great news, but I think it's positive news. We can balance the budget. As we get our staffing kind of straightened out, we'll know a little bit better. But that's really where we are. The only other thing that the legislature impacted, did to us, they did approve the K-3 reading assessment. We're already exceeding those expectations. We have been for years in terms of what we do for assessment on K-3 reading programs. The only thing that would be scary is if they dictated to us what assessments we had to use, and it wasn't what we currently use. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. But, and they did approve the redefinition of a habitually truant student, which we'll be working on this summer to change those policies. So that's really the only thing that happened this budget session, legislative budget session. So again, I'm optimistic. We're still in a good place.
Yep.
And things are going well. As was mentioned, we're moving forward with our certification of our level 2. I'm real excited to see how that all turns out for our schools. We're taking our state assessment this week, I think, starting tomorrow.
Starts tomorrow. Opens.
And we are back on that held accountability, that accountability system, so you'll see those results probably in usually October, November. Yeah. So anyway, again, a lot of good things happening and the budget's on.
Okay, great. Thank you for that update. Any questions? No. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. We are now down to our public comments. Is there any public comments tonight?
Everybody's looking at you.
You are the
You are it. You are the public.
You're the
There he
public.
comes.
Oh, my goodness.
The reporter's not here.
Yeah, that's great.
Dean Barker, class of '96. 125 Aspen Grove Drive. Am I the only one from the public here? That's interesting. Is the paper here?
No?
They're probably online.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am here just as a parent, not as any representative of the planning department from the city. So I kind of heard about the domes, and so I just wanted to come and give support on that. And as somebody that tried to play baseball here in the spring in high school and knows the difficulties of spring sports here, I think it's a must, and hopefully most of the community feels that way for the cost of those things. And so I just wanted to come and make sure there wasn't any opposition to that. So that's it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Okay, I don't see any other public members. So let's go ahead and move on to our action items. So our first item for action tonight is our personnel.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm going to go through these by section. Section 1 is we recommend the approval of the following resignations: Jared Dastra, Andrew Terminell, and Shelby Powell.
Okay, so is there a motion to accept the resignations as listed by Mr. Thomas?
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I will second that.
second by Mr. Peterson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Madam Chair, item 2 is we recommend that you approve the following leave of absence for Wendy Daniels. The leave of absence is for 1 school year, so for the 22-23 school year.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the leave of absence for Wendy Daniels for the next following school year for 1 year of the 2022 to 2023 year?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Madam Chair, number 3 is recommended the following contracts, and I'm just going to separate two. Bradley Francis has been selected as principal at Winter Meadows Elementary, and Travis Fackrell has been selected as the transportation director. And this, they both start on 7/1/2020. So we're excited to get them. I think we've added talent to our administrative pool.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the contract for Mr. Fackrell and Mr. Francis?
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Madam Chair, the last group, there are 13 certified contracts that I recommend that you approve. Probably the only one that I need to point out is Courtney Kent. Courtney actually is on contract right now. She took the position of one of the individuals that resigned on April 2nd. So that is a temporary contract to the end of the year, paid the daily rate. The rest are 4 of the contracts for next school year.
Okay.
Recommend that you approve all 13 of those.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the listed certified contracts?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes as well. Is that it? For that?
That's it.
Okay.
That one, yeah.
Okay. So down to our first reading approval of the food service policy updates.
Madam Chair, we recommend that you approve EF1 at first reading.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve EF1 on the first reading?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve that.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Madam Chair, the second part of that is we recommend that you approve the addition to the communication plan
Okay.
on first reading.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the addition to the communication on first reading?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
And finally, Madam Chair, we recommend that you approve the dollar amounts of lunch prices for the 22-23 school year and the aspect that reduced lunches will be free.
Okay.
Is that right?
Okay.
So is that, okay.
Okay.
Was that part of our action items or was that added? That wasn't on our list in here.
That was part of the food service.
It was the update.
Food
So
service
it
Okay, all
wasn't,
right,
it
okay.
wasn't a
All right.
document
Okay.
necessarily,
Okay.
but it was the update.
Okay.
So is there approval for the proposed lunch price, well, meal prices for next year and for the reduced lunch pricing to be free?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Down to our special education related service contract.
Madam Chair, we recommend that you approve the special service related service contract as posted.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the related services contract as provided in our documents?
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And then permission to purchase.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I recommend that a recommendation come from the board about the purchasing of these domes.
Okay. So as we previously discussed, we talked about potentially approving purchase of the 3 domes to not exceed 200,000. So that's kind of what we discussed, but I'll leave it open for someone to make a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Can you define it?
Not to exceed 200.
Not, yeah, that was the motion to not exceed 200,000.
For all three domes.
For all three.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes on that. Okay, we're done with our action items, so down to board roundtable. I know we've been able to share quite a bit tonight, but what else do we have to share? I will start that I have been up to the football field a couple times now, and it's amazing to see how quick this progress is moving. Like, it's shocking. Like, I couldn't believe that they're moving as fast as they are, and I just hope this weather breaks and we can just keep at the same pace, because it really gave me hope that we could really meet our deadline with how fast everything has gone so far. I know we may have a few hiccups along the road, but I'm really hopeful and I'm really excited.
So related to that, April 22nd is the date that they're planning on pouring concrete around our track. That's how fast it's moving. So April 22nd. Then the other thing that I found out is our turf is already manufactured. It's done. So it's just a matter of getting it prepared to move it in, so.
Those are great things.
They are, so.
There's still an intent, well, when it's ready to have a ribbon cutting ceremony and all that stuff. Now, when do the students have their elections for next year's student body president, et cetera? When's that happen? Huh?
In May.
Oh, in May. Because I would recommend that obviously the new would be involved in that as well, the student body presidents, et cetera.
That first event we have on that facility will be some kind of ribbon cutting.
Probably the whole, many students want to be there, yeah, that'd be sweet.
Homecoming?
Homecoming,
It will be homecoming.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
September 24th, is it?
23rd. Yep, September 23rd, so that's homecoming weekend, Hall of Fame weekend. Yeah.
Invite the local legislatures, state and all that. See if we get the governor here. I'll talk to Donald Trump, see if I can get him here. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Just as long as you don't bring BYU.
Yeah. That ain't happening.
The cheerleaders for the dome.
Anyway.
I think only other comments, I know there's a lot of moving parts, and it's impressive to see the school district work as a whole. As you can look at, from food to transportation to athletics to band, other activities, it's impressive to see it all work together cohesively, so appreciate all the hard work.
Yes, absolutely.
I second that.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
One more thing, Mr. Dastrup. Thank you so much for your service. You know, it's sad to see you go. I think you've been a huge asset here, and hopefully we move forward with what you have started and initiated at the elementary level. So thank you very much. Same way with you, George.
Yeah.
Going to be sorely missed, telling you. So thank you very much for your service too. So upon approving these resignations, it's kind of sad. So thanks again.
But you're not out of here quite yet.
No.
Good job.
Okay. Well, I guess if we don't have anything else, we'll go ahead and I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second, okay.
I will third.
Okay, we're done.
We're done.
Thank you, everyone.